Hello, and welcome to our group presentation for LIS 507 on the digital preservation of federal government information in the Federal Depository Library Program. This presentation was created by Sarah Marren, Casey Verhage, Katherine Mullins, and myself, Gabriella DiMeglio. This topic is part of a much larger practice in information science, known as information preservation. The American Institute for Conservation of Historic and Artistic Works defines preservation as the protection of cultural property through activities that minimize chemical and physical deterioration and damage, and that prevent loss of informational content. The primary goal of preservation is to prolong the existence of cultural property. Given the current technological climate, we cannot discuss the concept of information preservation without also discussing the development of digital preservation. There are various definitions available for digital preservation, and it is a concept which is ever-changing, along with technological advancements. Beagrie and Jones defined digital preservation as the series of managed activities necessary to ensure continued access to digital materials for as long as necessary. Conway provides another definition, stating that the purpose of digital preservation is to ensure protection of information of enduring value for access by present and future generations. While definitions vary among information professionals, there is a general consensus as to the increased need for digital preservation strategies as digital data and communication platforms continue to expand. In this presentation, we will be exploring digital preservation as it is performed within the Federal Depository Library Program, or FDLP. Now, what exactly is the FDLP? The Federal Depository Library Program was established by Congress in the mid-19th century with the goal of collecting, organizing, and preserving information produced by all parts of the federal government. This information is distributed to designated libraries across the country, which are located in nearly every U.S. congressional district. Today, there are over 1,000 federal depository libraries across the United States and its territories. The mission of these libraries is to provide local, free access to information from the federal government in an impartial environment. This program provides users with assistance in locating and accessing government information, thus making that information available for use by any member of the public. Next, Katherine will explore the information life cycle within the FDLP.
Hey there, I'm Katherine Mullins. Let's talk about the information life cycle with regards to the Federal Depository Library Program. The Government Printing Office is one of the forerunners in the preservation and dissemination of government materials. All of the materials that they acquire go through the information life cycle. Firstly, an item is selected for inclusion within the collection. The main goal of the Federal Depository Library programs is to make government information, especially that of legislative and executive documents, publicly accessible. Once an item has been selected for the collection, it is acquired and brought into the catalog system. Some of the items in Federal Depository Libraries are physical copies, but with the advent of technology, most of the items now are solely digital. The item is then processed, making it available to users who are searching through the Federal Depository Library's catalog. The item is able to circulate and be seen and read by users. Eventually, as with any library, an item may be deselected and weeded out of the collection. The National Archives and Records Administration makes many of the choices about what documents in the Federal Depository Library are removed from the collection and what is kept in circulation. The information life cycle can be interrupted at times when a document is unexpectedly lost. The Government Printing Office in the past has been reluctant to use depository libraries to store information. When the information is removed from government websites, rather than having a backup version stored in a federal deposit library, the document and its information are completely lost. While federal depository libraries are a wonderful source of information, the issue of long-term access to government documents needs to be addressed, as well as issues of transparency and accountability. How long should the information life of a document be? At what point does something become irrelevant for future generations to know? The Federal Depository Library Program and the Government Printing Office are under a lot of pressure when it comes to finding, collecting, tracking, and preserving all government information. But collaboration between the two organizations is key to keep the information lifecycle moving in the way that it should. The Federal Depository Library Program is a memory institution, which means they exist to digitize documents in the interest of continuing to archive the historical record. The practice of keeping records in this way to promote transparency goes back almost 100 years, though the manner in which the documents have been kept has changed greatly over the past century. The documents that are kept in this record are those that are written, produced, collected, assembled, or maintained under a law or ordinance by or for a government body. By introducing these documents and materials to the public, the Federal Depository Library Program begins their life in the information life cycle. The life cycle for a majority of the information found within these archives is born online, now that the government is prioritizing online publications more so than print publications of information materials. The way in which documents are able to go through their life cycle has changed greatly over time, especially in the last 15 years, as issues with strains on infrastructure, technology advances and changes, societal expectations, and economic issues have arisen with regards to the Federal Depository Library Program. Copyright claims have had an effect on the information life cycle with federal depository libraries and their documents. While library preservation efforts are usually safe from and not affected by copyright claims, with digital information, the issue arises when the copyright holder is able to limit the reproduction of their document. By limiting reproduction of the document, the creators then limit the public exposure that it has. The circulation and distribution of documents is an integral part of the information life cycle. The Federal Depository Library keeps track of what information or documents have been determined to be clearly published, such as materials offered for sale, materials that are unpublished, such as internal memos, emails, or reports, and materials which have an unclear publication status. States have the ability to disclaim copyright on some documents, which then allows those documents to be copied and distributed freely to the general public. Each document must be carefully considered when being added to the Federal Depository Library catalog, so as not to infringe on copyright, but there is still the desire to make documents available to the general public for processing and circulation through the information life cycle.
Hello there, my name is Casey Verhage. This section will be about the role of digitization of material and how the Federal Depository Library Program uses it and how it benefits from it. Before we begin, let's talk about what digitization is and why it's important. Digitization is the act of converting existing documents from an analog format to a digital format. Some examples would be scanning an old photo and putting it online or in the cloud, recording a phone call just so you can reference it later, or even just writing a reminder on a sticky note and then taking that sticky note and putting it into a reminder app on your phone, or even like what we're all doing right now, recording our voices so that other people can hear them. With that in mind, we do use digitization daily in our current world in one manner or another, whether it's taking a picture or something like I already described or anything along those lines. Let's talk about how the Federal Depository Library Program, or DLP, uses digitization. Digitization allows older government documents that were originally only available in analog formats to be converted into a digital format. This has benefits for the FDLP. First, some documents are of major historic significance and relevance and existed before digital formats were available, like items in the FDLP's legacy collection. These documents can be preserved digitally, which allows documents that are historically significant, like we mentioned, but possibly are fragile or unavailable to be moved around due to being fragile or needed somewheres, to now be safely and easily accessed by the general public. Some examples would be of old maps that were used to do exploration, that were used overall just to draw up like lines for states and government officials, or just even old tax documents, things that before digitization was commercially available were only in paper or analog formats. This could also be old recordings, things like that, that can be converted to a digital format to be played whenever. The FDLP, of course, is meant to allow all these documents to be available to the general public after all. So just digitization by itself is a huge boon to them. Other examples are legacy documents like the Code of Federal Regulations from the years 1990 to 1996. This document has not been digitized, and all of them from 1996 on are available online already. This document is a codification of all rules in the Federal Register for all departments of the federal government. So everything from the FDA, CIA, everything. Another example would be, as seen on the slide right here, a digitized copy of a poster which celebrates the Apollo 11 moon landing. And this poster is a 20-year anniversary poster, so it's pretty old, and it is currently being held in a library in Iowa, in one of their universities, and was digitized to be viewable by everyone. Digitization also makes it easy for depository libraries in each state, like the one I mentioned, the one in Iowa, and also, for example, Cornell's library, to request and receive new documents with ease. Libraries like these are meant to retain copies of all selective government publications, or just specific ones, depending on what type of depository library they are. And these libraries are also allowed to keep fully digital copies, or digitized copies, of their documents as their only version of a document, as long as it's permanently available to the public as well. So digitization also allows these repository libraries that work with the FDLP to request and hold them and make it so they still have space for other documents. And this also allows people who can't access these fully digital documents a chance or a place to access them outside of like going just to a computer, where maybe it's someplace where they can't get access to them, or maybe where they don't have internet access at all and need a document for some reason or another. And of course, being fully digital now, or at least getting to that point, these digitized documents can now be available to people at home, like us. Besides all of these benefits and factors, many government documents originate digitally now. So they may be written out or set up first in an analog format, but they are digitized first and then originate to the general public from the FDLP and only as a digital document. So it's now the standard for current documents. Overall, the role of digitization is to preserve information and allow the FDLP to disseminate this information to the general public in an easy-to-digest manner.
Hello, this is Sarah Marren, and I will be discussing several issues with the Federal Depository Libraries digitizing federal government information. In terms of information preservation, there are several risks that come with a completely digital format for government information. For government information that is born digital or posted right on a federal website, there's no universal model for preserving it. Due to this, there's always the risk that certain government information deemed controversial or damaging will be removed based on the current administration. This was shown during the Trump administration, where important science information on climate change was removed from the EPA website because those in the Trump administration thought it was either controversial or not important. In addition, a major issue with the digital library HathiTrust is that its cataloging of federal government documents have been inconsistent over the years. Some cataloging has even been missing for documents that originally were stored on shelves and contained Superintendent of Document or SUDOC numbers assigned by the Government Publishing Office. From the user's perspective, issues with digital government information can come from government shutdowns leaving users unable to access important government information from federal agencies' databases or websites. If federal depository libraries' budgets continue to be cut, they probably won't be able to afford government information experts, and that can hurt users who don't know how to navigate federal agency websites or how to use government information. If a digital library service's viewability is based on bibliographic data like HathiTrust, then inaccurate or incomplete data will result in view of digital government documents being limited for end users. In terms of librarians and information professionals, digital government information can be difficult for smaller libraries to purchase and acquire from private vendors due to the heavy privatization of digital government information in recent years. With so much government information now available online, federal depository libraries now have to compete with less professional but more user-friendly systems like Google, which can provide much easier access to digital federal information. This can be especially prevalent in areas where users have limited access to the internet. This can lead to several libraries dropping out of the FDLP altogether out of not being able to compete with websites like Google at providing easily accessible digital government information.
Now that we've explained the digital preservation of government information in the FDLP, we'd like to conclude our presentation with some important points which apply to many different information environments. The benefits of digital preservation are found in the overall increase in access. Access to information is not only extended to more current users through digital platforms, access is also prolonged to future users, thus contributing to information preservation. We explored these concepts as they relate to federal government information. However, increased access for information users is something that all LIS institutions should strive for, whether that be in a public or academic library, archives, museum, etc. We also explored some issues relating to digital preservation, which are important to keep in mind in any information environment. Those issues include copyright claims, which can limit the use of documents, information losses which can occur with the removal of digital records, and the rapid growth of born digital content. It is critically important that information professionals consider these issues when developing digital preservation programs and strategies within their own respective information environments. This concludes our discussion of digital preservation of government information in the Federal Depository Library program. Feel free to check out these resources for further reading. We hope you enjoyed the presentation, and thank you so much for watching.